All right, so in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to use OpenAI new framework. It's a new framework that allows you to create agents, AI agents that can do various things. It's pretty new and it's all over the place right now. So let's go ahead and get started. But before we go there, we need to understand what is an agent. I like to think of an agent as a software entity that allows us to do more with our large language models. So as you may know, large language models don't really have a lot to do when it comes to tooling, meaning they know what they know, they were trained on a certain amount of data, certain types of data. But when it comes for us to be able to do more, to leverage, in this case, the large language models need help, need tool. So the tooling, it's what agents use to actually do all other things, to invoke tools to go, for instance, search the web, query SQL databases, interact with different kind of files such as CSV files and many other things. So it's really good because now the large language model has a helper per se to go fetch things and do other things. And once the agent or agents are able to get the results, then they can take that result along with the large language model and create a response to the user. So that is the idea of an agent. Now, what's real exciting here is that OpenAI has this new framework called Swarm. So let's go ahead and take a look what this does. If you go ahead and type in Swarm, this is what we get. So let's go all the way down here. You can see as of recording of this video, it's been 3 weeks now, so not too long. It already has 15,000 stars. That's very exciting. That means people are excited about this. They're actually using it. It's experimental and educational. Obviously, we're not going to be using this for production applications, but it's a really good indication or indicator things are moving in the right direction when it comes to creating AI agents. Because once we have AI agents, as I showed you, they can do a lot of things, okay? Experimental sample framework intended to explore ergonomic interfaces, multi-agents, systems. And it tells the primary goal of Swarm is to showcase the handoff and routine patterns explored in this document here. Now, what does that really mean? The idea is that we have agent that is orchestrating everything. So this agent will know exactly, depending on the input that comes in, what needs to be done or which agents needs to be called upon to do certain kind of work. That is essentially what it means. Okay, so very good. And the beauty here, you can see the usage. This is beautiful. If you look at there, all we have to do is just import certain dependencies and create a client Swarm. So you can see here we have this function called transfer to agent B. So this is actually returning an agent object. So what this does, you will see in code once we get going, is that allows this orchestrator to be able to say, okay, once this is called, it's going to be added into an agent of some sort to say as part of tools or functions that are needed for this agent to listen or to use when need be, it's going to be this. So as you can see at the bottom here, we created an actual agent, beautifully created. We just created an object. And we pass in a name, instructions, and then functions. This is going to be a list or an array. And you can see that in this case, we're just passing this transfer to agent B. So it's going to call this, which will know, oh, go ahead and return agent B, which is at the bottom here. And agent B, of course, has its own instructions. And then all we have to do is just say client. We created a client at the top here, run and pass the agent. We want to start at agent B and then pass a message or messages. So role, user, content, I want to talk to agent B. And then we can print the results. So essentially when we run this, we're going to get something similar to this. Now in the back end here, this is OpenAI, of course. So it is implied that OpenAI API key is needed for this to work. Okay, so it's not showing here, but it is part of the whole thing if you want this to work. That's how simple it is to create agent. Now this is a very simplistic really demonstration, but you can see it's very simple. You don't have to do much. Okay. All right. So there's more here. You can read and do all sort of things, but what do you want to be able to do is go ahead and start doing things. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so obviously the first thing you need to make sure you do is to have the OpenAI API key, and I want you to do that and put that inside of this .env. And the next thing we'll talk about is we're going to use this Tavili API key, which we'll get there, okay, for search and everything. All right, just make sure you have that set up. and let's keep going. So first of all, what we need to do is I'm running a virtual environment here. You should have that set up. Is I'm going to go back to the documentation and let's see how do we get started. Okay, so requires Python 3.10 plus, and let's do a pip install. I'm going to use this HTTPS here. Copy that and then hit enter, and this should install all the dependencies for us to be able to get started with Swarm. Okay, after a little bit, we should have everything set up and ready to go. Now, if you look at the code here, there's a lot of things we can do. We can just copy all of this, of course, and see how it works. Let's just go ahead and do that. So the first thing you can see here, we're going to go ahead and import the agent in Swarm entirely. Also import, let's say from.env, import load env, and I'm going to load the .env. This will allow us to obviously be able to get all the environment variables that we need. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a client. Okay, so I'm going to start from scratch here. This client is going to be Swarm. Beauty here is that when we say load.env and we call Swarm internally, what happens is going to be able to get the .env file and get the OpenAI key and everything. Okay, next let's go ahead and define the very simple transfer to agent B, as we saw in the example here, and this will return, of course, our agent B, so which we haven't created. So I'm going to go ahead and define agent B. And what is agent B going to be? Well, in this case here, I'm actually not going to define. It's going to be a variable, so I'm going to say agent B, and I'm going to create the actual agent. This is how you create an agent. Very simply, you instantiate our agent, or we got import our agent there, and then we instantiate our agent here. If you hover over, you can see we can pass name, model is GPT-4o. Okay, this is the default. Okay, we can also name obviously our agent. Call this agent B or whatever else you want. You can say agent B like that, doesn't matter. Okay, and then we can specify the model, but we're going to use the GPT-4 or which is the default. Okay, let's go ahead and pass instructions, because we need to give instructions to say, okay, what are you all about, this agent? What is it going to be all about? Okay, what is it going to be able to do? Are a helpful agent. Very simple. And next we're going to pass here functions. So the functions are the tools that we're going to allow this agent to be able to call upon. Okay, so in this case we're going to say, well, what we wanted to do really is to call this transfer to agent B, which incidentally calls agent B. Okay, this should be agent A, I should say. Okay, so we need to create agent B. So agent B, I'm going to instantiate a new one. This is going to be agent B, and for the instructions here, I'm just going to pass that. Okay, only speak in haikus and write haiku for the user. Okay, we don't need to pass functions here because we don't really want this agent to do anything or to have any other tooling besides what it already has. Okay, so in this case, we could have said, okay, functions, pass a different transfer to B. We can say transfer to C or transfer to another function, but that is okay. That's about it. And so at this point here, all we can do is just go ahead and run this real quick so you can see. So what happens here is that now we have this client. Remember, the client is at the top here, a Swarm. We'll know how to orchestrate everything essentially. And we say client.run. So the run function here, we pass the agent. Well, we pass the messages that we want to pass and context variable and many other things. And so here we're passing as the number one agent is going to be agent A, which is this friend of ours here. So it will know that, okay, once I'm called, I'll know how to be helpful in that I can also call this function, which is going to lead me to return or call agent B. All right, that's it. So that's what's going to happen here. And I'm going to pass messages, pass the role. The user is going to be content. I want to talk to agent B. So the user is going to say, pass this query to say, I want to talk to agent B. So it will know what to do because agent A, which is what's running here, is going to know that, oh, well, I need to transfer to agent B, which is this one here. Very good. Let's go ahead and run real quick. I can just go ahead and run here. Okay, you can see that we have agent B will come. For now, let's chat with haikus, Haikas. I don't know how to say that. Ask what you would like. Very good. So this is indeed working. So that is how quickly we can put together very simple AI agents just like that. Now, this may not make an exciting example, but it shows you how easy it is to get started. All right, so at this point, you should have some very basics on how to use Swarm and put together very simple orchestration per se using Swarm, all of these different agents. Very simple, but at least you have some ideas. Okay, now let's go ahead and do something really fun here. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to create this newsletter writing or writer agents. So the idea is very simple. We're going to have this orchestrator agent, which is going to be the triage agent, essentially, who's going to orchestrate everything. So the idea is that we're going to pass in some sort of an input to say we want AI news of some sort, and that will go through the search agent. So between search agent and the writing agent, they're going to be working together. So the orchestrator, the triage, as we'll see, will be able to get or orchestrate this whole workflow to make sure that the search agent is able to get the query or the topic that is being passed through, and so that it knows exactly what to do. So it's going to go ahead and hit a search API, which we'll talk about in a little bit here. And then it's going to pass that information once it was able to get all of the articles pertaining to that query, and then pass that to the writing agent. Now, the writing agent is going to write an article, right? Essentially a newsletter. And once it does that, it's going to pass that through the editor agent. So the editor agent is going to edit whatever the writing agent was able to do. Now, the beauty here is that throughout this whole process, once the editor agent is ready, it's done editing everything, it can potentially go through this revision loop. So we have this newsletter that was written, and it's going to go back and, depending on what needs to be done, go back to the editor, and the editor is going to look again and rewrite everything and go back and forth as such. Okay. And then at the end, we should have some results, in this case, a full-blown newsletter that we can use to send through emails and do other things. So this is the workflow we're going to be using, we're going to be building using Swarm. Let's go ahead and get started. Now, because of the nature of Swarm and OpenAI, it can't go and fetch information on the internet, especially when we're using the OpenAI API key and all that stuff. So what do we need? We need a different tool. In this case, we're going to use the Tavili, which is a search. I'm going to make this larger. This says here, connect your large language model to the web. So we're going to be able to connect our large language model to the web. And what this does is that it allows us to essentially be able to do search, Google search of some sort, and get information. So we can go ahead and pass a query or a topic, and then it does search for us. And then we'll receive actually a JSON containing results. So that's what we're going to be doing. If you want to follow along, by the way, you're going to have all the code that you need, but you will need to have also Tavili's OpenAI key. So it's very simple. You go ahead and say, get started, give your information, and then you're going to be able to get at least 1,000 API calls per month, which is really, really good. So if I go on my account, you can see that I've been running this. I have my API key. I've run 42 usage, and I have about 1,000 requests limit. I think it is indeed per month. Okay, so it should be more than enough for you to be able to run this and other things. Okay, so make sure you get the API key and put in our .env file. So here I have this newsletter _gen.py. This is the file where we're going to start putting everything together. First of all, actually, I need to make sure that I say pip install Tavili Python, because we need to have that. Okay, so I have Tavili client, this load.env, we've seen this before, and also Swarm import agent, and we'll see that we have this REPL here, which will allow us to run and be able to see in our console here. We can actually interact with it, so it's very nice, as you will see. Okay, we have all those things. Let's go ahead and make sure to load our environment variables and create the Tavili client, which allows us to pass API key, which is going to be that one there. So I name Tavili TVLY API key. So first, let's go ahead and put together a function, which is going to be a tool that's going to be called byte agent. Let's define this function. This is going to be search news. And what we want to do is we want to pass a string, which is going to be the actual query. Okay. So the beauty here is that you will see we don't need to do much. We just have to create these tools, which are essentially these functions that will do what they need to do. Okay. So I'm going to make this a little bit more sophisticated in a way by passing in this dot string first here. And then I'm going to put all of that inside of a try and catch, just in case things don't go as planned. So let's make sure we have our client Tavili. That's what we called. And we do the search. So what's happening here is that we are going to see how to use this. This is going to be search like that. So we are calling Tavili, say search, and passing in the query, which is going to be passed, as you see here, as a parameter. And then we get a response and we get the results from that response, because this JSON is going to have a lot of other things. So that is the first function, which we're going to be using in a little bit. And the next function we're going to define, it's going to be the one that is going to be called by the writing agent. Now, remember, we're not creating an agent yet. We're just creating all the pieces, in this case, the tools or the functions we're going to pass along to our agents. So this is called the write newsletter. So we're going to pass articles. And then I just have this print just for us to see. And then this just a doc string here, write a newsletter with the given articles or text. Okay. And another print statement here. So essentially, it's going to go ahead and concatenate everything and return the actual text, which is going to be the newsletter. Okay, so next I'm going to get the review newsletter. Just create here real quick. So this is the review newsletter. We passed the actual newsletter that was written. Okay. And then we just print out that newsletter that was reviewed. So whatever reviews were made, we're going to just print that out. Now you will see that that's really essentially what all we have to do. Now we need to create functions that allow the main orchestrator, the triage agent, to be able to say, okay, when this happens, you're going to be responsible to go and connect, or in this case, transfer control to another agent. Because remember, all of these agents are going to be working together. So when agent A is finished doing what it needs to do, we want to make sure to get that information to agent B and so forth. And so these connections, relationships, are created by creating these functions, as you will see here. So essentially the same thing we've seen before in the previous example. I'll call here the transfer to search. So that means you're going to return the search agent, which we haven't created. I'm going to also put another one here. This is transfer to writer. And the next is going to be transfer to editor. So we have three here because we have essentially going to have three agents. Let's go ahead and create all these agents. Okay, let's start by creating the search agent. Okay, so the search agent here, what it does, well, you say agent, as we saw before, pass in the name, whatever name you want to pass, and then the instructions. Now you can remember these instructions, this is a template, this is the prompt, essentially, that tells the agent what it needs to know, the instruction that it needs to know, so that it knows what to do. So here we're saying you're a world-class search agent, web searcher. Your role is to search for news, most recent articles, blah, 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 retrieve the article title, content, and URL, and make sure to transfer the control to the writing agent for drafting the newsletter. That's very important because we want to make sure that it knows what to do next. So everything you need for this agent to know, you need to write in the instructions. Now, the important part here is we have the functions. So the functions, you can see, we have a list or an array. That means we can pass more than one. So we say here search news. What is this search news? Well, if you go back here, you can see that we have search news. That means search news is going to be a tool which is going to be used by our agent here. But also the agent needs to know, okay, what do I do next? Well, it needs to be able to transfer power, essentially, to the writer once we've done the search. Does that make sense? So it knows what to do, which is search news, but also knows how to connect to a different, or to give power to somebody else to continue the work. That's why we have this transfer to writer, which is just a function that returns this one here, transfer to writer, and returns a writer, which we haven't created. What is this writer? Well, it's indeed an agent. Okay, let's go ahead and get the writer agent real quick. Okay, so now we have this writer agent, the same thing. We pass in instructions, take search results and generate a newsletter draft. Make sure that you include the title, content, URL, and everything. And look at this, transfer the draft to the editor agent for a review. Okay, now the same thing, functions we're passing, write letter, I should say, to write the actual letter. And then we have this transfer to editor, right? Because once it writes, we want to make sure that it transfer the power, in this case, to the editor. So what does the editor do? Well, it edits. So reviews the letter, draft in this case, and decide if it needs revision. If it needs revision, transfer back to the writing agent. See here, we pass the review newsletter because it knows what to do, and transfer to writer. And that's about it. Now, once we have all of that, we need to get the orchestrator. The orchestrator is going to be the agent, the triage agent, essentially, that's going to be able to say, okay, I got this request. I know what to do. I'm going to pass the request to agent A, which will know then how to pass to agent B and so forth. So to orchestrate everything. All right, so very simple again. And I'm going to go ahead and get it. By the way, if you want to learn more about agents and build a real-world solution with AI in general, I actually have this awesome community that I've opened up and it's growing. I would love to have you there. It's a place where you can actually find like-minded people who want to actually build things using AI. So use the coding abilities with AI agents and many other things put together to build real-world projects. So we have this personalized learning path, build your chatbot, build your first AI-powered chatbot, large language model, LLM fundamentals if you want to, AI basics for builders, and many other things that are still coming. So if you're interested, you will see a link in the description where you can go ahead and join. Okay, let's go back to the code. Okay, so now we have our triage agent here. So what it does, well, we give it instructions. We say determine the appropriate agent based on the task. Make sure to transfer control to the correct agent based on the task. So number one, if the task is to search for news, well, transfer control to the news, search news, whatever agent. And if the task is to write a newsletter, transfer that to the correct writing agent, and so forth. Now, this is very simplistic. That means if you want to make this even better, of course, you write better instructions here. All right, very good. Now, here's the thing that is very important to keep in mind, is that once we have created our triage agent, we need to tell it, okay, what are the tools that you need to connect? So what are your children agents, per se, that you will need for you to know, okay, which one to connect to do X, Y, and Z. So all of that is done by saying as follow. We can say triage, call the name of our agent, and then say dot function, and then we can pass all of these. So we can see here, I'm passing these transfer to search, transfer to writer, transfer to editor, which, as you know, all of these are actually returning the actual agents. So now our orchestrator, as I like to call him, it will have the tools, will have the functions to call whenever it needs to do something. Okay, so once all of that is done, all we have to do is run demo loop, which is the REPL that we pulled in here from Swarm, and then it's going to run that loop. Okay, so if main, let's go ahead and run that. And we need to pass our triage agent, as you see here, which has knowledge of all of the search, writer, and editor agents. All right, fun. Let's go ahead and run this real quick. And I hope you can see how easy this is. Let's go ahead and say Python 3 and newsletter.py. Okay, just real quick here to see what's going to happen. Okay, so the first thing you see is that you're going to say, okay, user, what is it that you want to pass in? What is the query? Most recent news about AI. Let's go ahead and hit enter. And let's see what's going to happen. So now in the back end, things are happening, hopefully. Is that, okay, searching for news on the recent AI news query. Very good. So that was the little print that I put in that function, which has been called. But internally, what's going to happen is going to go ahead and call, look at that. Very good. Very good. So right away, I was able to say, okay, search going to go ahead and say got the article. So this is the print that I put there, the article titles and everything. So the first article and then title AI. And let's see what it's saying. Imagine combining. So scientists, tools, blah, blah, blah. Artificial intelligence news, and even gives us the links where we can go and read more about this. So we have the title AI news and another one. So about 5 articles and descriptions and everything. Once that happens, look what happens. Say it's writing a newsletter with the search results. And Triage, our orchestrator, went ahead and say, okay, I'm going to transfer now to search, transfer the power, transfer the reign essentially to transfer to our search agent. And then search agent force took over again and pass in recent AI news and so forth. Okay. Now remember, the reason why you're seeing all of this is because in the function called, actually what happens is that I put that so that we can see ourselves. So all of that actually happens inside of this agent, which is the search agent. Okay. Very good. So you can see now what happened. So it went ahead and actually got the query, which is recent AI news, right? And then the search agent transfers the power here to the writer agent, and the writing agent goes ahead and starts writing. So write newsletter, gets the articles and everything that is passed along. Look how beautiful this is. And once that was done, the transfer goes to the editor. Now the editor has the reins. So it's going to go ahead and edit. So it says here, the latest AI newsletter draft featuring the most recent relevant news about advances, blah, blah, has been transferred to the editor for finalization before release. So, and stop there. But what I can do, I can say, can you show me the final release? Right, because now we can see we can talk with these agents and tells us exactly, I'm unable to show you the final release directly as it would first need to be completed and approved by the editorial team. Okay, can you then send it for approval? Something like that. Let's see what's going to happen. Okay, transfer to writer. Very good. The newsletter draft has already been sent to editor for approval. The editorial team will review and finalize it before it's released. Is it ready? Let's see. Okay, that's fine. It's an agent, so it's just going through things. Okay, I'm going to say, okay, show me the final draft. Let's see. Okay, so it's playing hard to catch here. I can say, great. Send it to the reviewer. Show me the final. Okay, so I think it's hallucinating a little bit because it's thinking that perhaps I actually have a team of people who want to go there. Okay, I can say, it's okay. Just show the final draft. Let's see what's going to happen. Okay, let's say, go back to the writing agent and show the draft. Okay, after a little bit of work with these agents, you can see that this draft will be reviewed, finalized, blah, blah, blah. It's okay. We know it's all good. You can see we'll transfer to writer. Here is the draft of the newsletter featuring the latest AI news. And voila, very good. We can make it write better because this is just a list, but it's okay. It has all the content and a little bit about each one of these. So this is really good. Okay. So I can say, for instance, okay, this is good. No need for further editing. Let's see what's going to happen. Okay, very good. Just like that, you're able to create your very first, hopefully, swarm AI agents that do a lot of good stuff. Now, this is the beginning. This is for just to show you, but you can see the power of things that you can do. All right. So I hope this was helpful. If so, don't forget to subscribe. And if you're interested to learn more about how to actually build real world AI-based agents and tools, go ahead and join my community that is growing like crazy at this point, and we would love to have you. This is the place where you're going to find other people like-minded who are interested in learning more and building real-world projects that actually solve real-world problems using AI. Okay, thank you. See you next.